Hi guys, and welcome to Advanced Woodcraft Take 2, Lesson 2. In it we're going to talk now about tent stakes. In the previous video we talked about how to match up a quick deploy tarp with a quick deploy ridge line for very quick. Well, in this we're going to complete that set and talk about a quick deploy tent stake set. Okay? Now let us talk about tent stakes first off. There are different kind of tent stakes. Usually tents and tarps and stuff come with these teeny tiny little bitty thin little wire tent stakes. They are useless unless you want to make a little shish kebab with them. Always upgrade to a bigger, better stake. Now the shepherd's hook type that you've seen before, which is the standard type, and let me put a picture up of it right here. Those have very little holding power because they're round and therefore they pull through the soil fairly easily. They don't have a whole lot of holding strength. It's a pin, not really a stake. It's a pin, like a nail being pinned into the ground or like a sewing needle pin pinning into your shirt. It just holds a place and it has very little holding ability. Now, a different type stake that has facets to it gives it the ability to spread and hold. So what I carry is a standard stake, is these type of stakes. Now notice that they are a 3-point, and each one of these hollows gives you holding because it's a V like that. So whichever the way the load is actually pushing dirt instead of cutting dirt. Even if I put it edge on like that, it's trying to push a broad through a narrow. But what I want is that flat edge, that valley facing toward the load. Now, let's talk about guy lines because that's where this system gets its strength. Usually, most of the guy lines that you see sold as guy lines are way oversized and way over strength for what they're going to do. Now, I carry 3/8 inch rope for the guy line for a 12 by 12 10-ounce duck canvas tarp. And I carry 18-inch long, 1/2 inch diameter stakes for that. Why? That is such a big, strong tarp. It's a sail. And if I get a 40, 50, 60, 80, because I am in the south, gust of wind hitting it, it's a sail, just like on a ship. And so that large mass grabs the air and it ain't going to tear and it ain't going to go. And so if I don't have a strong enough stake in the ground, it's just going to rip it right out of the ground. And since for many, many years, over 20 years, I did living history reenactment where we were camping in these big canvas tents with big tarps and 12 by 12 canvas tarps set up on poles with guy lines out. I learned about how to stake and make sure it's solid and not going to give. But in our woodscraft, when we're just going out camping and we're carrying a sil nylon tarp, that is way overkill. Now you need a good, strong line, but it does not have to be that large a dimension for this technique. Usually we're tying. The usual way to do it is you attach your line to your tarp and you leave it attached to the tarp. This means that when I fold up the tarp, I got all the spaghetti lines I got to work with, or I got to sit there and roll every one of them up and somehow secure them to the tarp. Every time I break up and down, adds a lot of time to break down. But as I pointed out in the last video, what I do is I attach the line to the stake and then spiral it, and we're going to show that in a minute. But let's talk about what would be the minimum I carry, and what the minimum I carry is number 12 bank line. Now, this is a small fishing line. Okay, very small in diameter, very strong. How strong? 100-pound breaking strength is what this is listed as on the sites. 100 pounds. Now this is number 12. You go up to number 9, that's even more. Number 36 is over 300 pounds, but number 36 is way overkill, isn't it? Because I'm not going to put that much weight on a sil nylon tarp. Sil nylon can't take it, right? And so I'm going to have it kind of matched to my application. This little line disappears, you don't see it. When you put it out here into the nature, see how it just kind of disappears out there? That's what I want, especially if I'm going sneaky or stealth. So, How long? Well, back to the stake. All the stakes, as I said, need to have an eye in it. Now I can hook to that eye. Some of them have a series of these 7 notches down the side. That's just fine. But this type, which is that Ozark, Cooligans, like you get at Walmart, this is the longer one. There's a shorter one and a longer one. Get the longer one. Okay, has this notch right here, and that's where I'm going to secure my line into that notch to begin with. I'm going to leave a loop at the top. Why? This is the pull-out toggle. I need to have fairly strong cordage for this. And the actual eye, make sure it's not burred up. This is punched in the factory when it's made. So take your fingers and rub it. If it's got a sharp edge, take a drill bit by hand, a larger drill bit, and sit there and turn it and score it out and make sure it's smooth so that it's not going to cut the line. Now this is a piece of 150-pound test saltwater fishing line is what I got in here. So this ain't going to break. This will come out, but it allows me to put a toggle in here and bear down and pull it out if I've got it stuck in the ground somehow. Okay? How long is the line? Well, I want my line to be about 10 feet of usable length. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie bowline in this end. In this small bank line, I'm going to tie a knot. And it does not have to be this line. It can just look at what is the breaking strength of the line that you're wanting to need and be reasonable. Around 100 pounds, 150 pounds is more than adequate for a sil nylon tarp. What if I've got a much bigger, heavier tarp blanket? Then you may want to go up to something like a 200-pound breaking strength. But again, you've got a balance point there of how much pressure, what's going to give. Is it going to just pull the stake out of the ground, or is it going to tear my tarp up? Which would I prefer? I'd prefer the line to break rather than ripping my tarp. So this is like a fail-safe. Hold in anything but the most severe gust, which would be a tornado, mainline wind, 140 mile an hour or something. Yeah, I want this line to snap and let my tarp just flap like a sail and let go, instead of ripping the grommets out of my tarp. That's the reason. So we're going to come up here and we're going to simply tie a bowline into it. Now, all of you know how to do a bowline, so I'm not going to demonstrate it this time. And note that Blackie is doing this without his glasses on. So he's using the false Luke. Alright, making sure that pulls up good and tight. Just like that. That little extra tab. Alright, there's my loop. Now how long? I want 10 feet. I'm right at 5'10", so we're going to go with that. So I'm going to hook from my thumb to go all the way out and hook to my thumb and call that a full pull. 1. 2. That ought to be close to 10 feet, right? And then give myself about that much more. That's enough. Now we're going to cut that. We're going to go ahead and tie off a knot on our hank because we don't want it to fray out. We're going to take this in, we're going to tie a knot in it because we don't want it to fray out. Tar bank line does not fray out like other lines, but you get my point. Why do I prefer tarred bank line? Because A, it does not fray out. B, it's a little bit more tacky and a little bit more resilient, and it's not so slick, so not sticking it real well. That's the reason I use it in fishing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply create a loop, go down that stake to that 7 notch. I'm going to pull it in tight, go back over it again, turn that into a square knot, just like that. And then I'm going to take this tag in and I'm going to go underneath it. Again, using the force. Like he ain't got his glasses on. And then I'm going to put another 1/2 inch into it. Cut that tab off. Now that's got my stake good and secure to that, correct? Now I'm going to take and I'm going to spiral this line up this tent stake. Keeping it tight up here close to the top. Just like this. Now if I didn't have that already on there, this would be quicker now, wouldn't it? But I already had it, so. About halfway down, stepping on the line, pull it. It'll make it kind of bite to itself. Wind it up. And get up there where you're fairly close. Pull it fairly tight ever so often so it bites down into itself. Now, here is my line with an eye. There is 10 feet of line right there. That's it. Actually probably more like 12 or 13 feet really. You saw what I did. So with that right there, that means that this thing is going to be a better guy line. It's going to be set up, and that doesn't take up much space now, does it? Could I do better if these were black? Yeah. If I was trying to be stealthy, I'd want these in a dark color, the earth tone, to blend it in instead of this orange. But it works fine for this. Now let me show you what happens on how you attach it to the grommets of the tarp. Okay. I take my stake with my line, I stick it up through the grommet, just like that. I then take the stake, give myself a little bit of slack, and I go through it. Pull it down. That is now attached, and I can anchor the line out without having to worry about it coming loose. If I want a quick disconnect, I can simply put the line through and put a wood stick in there as a toggle. Works the same way. Okay. Now with this stake set up this way and that big bowline in that end, I can attach to tarps or whatever. Or whatever. In this case, let's say I want to anchor to this tree for whatever reason and use it as a pole that's holding up an awning or whatever. I take my line, I go around it, I pass it back through itself, or toggle as stated. I pull it tight and then I just let the line spiral out in my hand, see, until I get out as far as I need. Now, pulling the line tight, I stake it in the ground. Once it's in the ground, if I need a little bit more tension, I can pull the line and go around one more time. That will pull it tighter. If I need to loosen it a little bit, I can grab the line, pull it, and give it just a little bit more slack. One lap tighter or one lap looser. When I pull it up out of the ground using that toggle, all I got to do is sit here and start spiraling it up just like this. As I walk back up to the tarp or the tree or whatever. When I get up there, pull it good and tight to make the line bite down upon itself, just like that. Pull that loop out, pass the stake through it, and voila, I'm back off. Pull it snug. Now there's 10 feet of guy line right there, ready to go. Now, how many lines do you tote for a tarp? 4. Just 4. Why? 1 for each corner. I'm setting up as a diamond. You need 3. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 4 to pull out the center, right? The back, the 2 outward points, and the center pull out. I'm setting it up as a lean-to, right? 2 anchor points are on the line, 2 in the bottom, and 1 to pull out the center. 3. I got 4. 4 handles 90% of it. Well, what if I need more? Any woodsman worth his salt can make a tent stake. You're carrying extra line in your haversack. If I require an extra one, pick up your knife and make a tent stake in about a minute and just stake out another line. But I only need to carry 4. And 4 of these in a set ain't very big. One other quick point. The top of these are rough on your hand if you're trying to push them down, so you need some sort of palm saver. What I use is a used shotgun shell. Now with that wad of bank line up here, what you want to do is just take one of these shotgun shells that's got high brass and cut it off. So I've got a cap I can just put over the top, put my hand on and shove down. That flattens it out instead of making those sharp points dig into your hand. See? And standing on them bends them, so I just went carrying a used shotgun shell. But if it's too long, it's going to come down and hit that. Just cut it off where it's a short little flat piece or any other flat little device. I know one guy that he carries a piece of leather with a hole in it so he can stick his thumb up to the hole and that'll lay the leather like a palm tab, like for shooting archery, and then he puts that on top and shoves it in. Some little trick that you carry will work just fine. So in conclusion, I start out with 4 tent stakes. These can be whatever size stake you deem necessary for your operation. I don't like the round pins, as I said, unless they get to be 18-inch long and big as my thumb. Those will hold. But those little 6-inch round pieces of aluminum, no, they always bend, they always break, and they always pull right out of the dirt once you get a little bit of rain in it. So I go with something with a little bit more grit to it. Now the plastic ABS stakes work well for this as well, and that's where I really started, was using those originally. They had so many uses and they were just about indestructible. You beat them in the ground, and if you had to leave one because you just couldn't get it out of the ground because you went through a root and that root swelled shut or something, you weren't out a lot. But these now are cheap and available and they do a fairly decent job. Now that's all 4 stakes and guy lines right there. I would put that down into the stuff sack first, and then I would put my tarp down around it. Or I would take this and put me up into that bundle of, if I'm doing this, it'd be into that and cinched in place, and that would have my tent stakes and everything in one unit. Pretty easy, right? There's a whole package. There's a poncho with ridgeline already rigged up, ready to go, and there's the 4 stakes. Don't shake, don't rattle, don't make no noise, and it's just a bushcraft zip tie holding the whole thing together. All I gotta do is pull that and everything comes loose. And I can hang it on a line and be done with it real quick. Now with these 4 guidelines like that, I just simply roll out to wherever I need and stake it in the ground. Whenever I'm ready to come back up, I pull it up out of the ground and I just alternate. Instead of going in a straight line, angle it, angle it, angle it, angle it. And that makes it wrap like this, so that it isn't just a straight line that's going to spill and come down the stake. It bites to it. Plus, bank line being a little bit sticky, it kind of sticks to itself once you put a little tension on it. So it doesn't make a big mess in the pack or something like that. But there's the whole set ready to go. Being able to get to my camp. Pull this out of the top of my Alice pack, my rucksack, my Nighthawk rucksack, and be able to set my camp up in just a couple of minutes with this, because my stake's already ready to go. My tarp is already on my ridge line. All I got to do is select the place, run the ridge line up, pull it straight out, boom, my tarp's up. Then all I got to do is just walk around and stick it through the loop, thread it through, pull it out, stake it. Stick it through the loop, pull it out tight, stake it. Walk around. Real quick up, real quick down. Hope you've enjoyed this. There'll be more videos in the Advanced Woodscraft class. This is more of a intermediate class to more advanced stuff. And these are tips and tricks that you guys have asked me about on how to do, that the guys starting out, it's a little, if they don't have a basis, it's going to be a little difficult for them. But for you guys that have got a basis and you've got some time in the woods and you understand, it'll help streamline your pack and streamline your setup, takedown, cooking, and etc. And we're going to go through this step by step. If you've enjoyed the content, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button and comment for me. I'd greatly appreciate it. Feed the algorithm and help my channel grow. And I would greatly appreciate that. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.